We are taught to fear market crashes, to treat them like natural disasters, unpredictable, devastating, and above all, unchallengeable. But what if I told you not all crashes are created equal, that some crashes are long overdue, not as acts of God, but as long withheld corrections to systems so bloated, predatory, and dishonest that their collapse is not a tragedy, but a mercy. If the Minnesota Housing Sovereignty Act passes and we build 250,000 sovereign homes by 2040, affordable, modern, durable homes starting at $63,000 each, the housing market as we know it will crash. That is not a risk. That is the point. Let me be absolutely clear. This is not an accident of policy. It is the direct intention. The MNHSA is a controlled demolition of the speculative real estate economy. It does not nibble at the margins. It does not ask for permission. It declares war on the entire premise of housing as a speculative commodity, and then offers an exit ramp to dignity, to autonomy, to shelter as a birthright, not a bargaining chip. And this is not theoretical. It is system dynamics in action. The MNHSA is not just policy. It is a posse-wit event. The purpose of a system is what it does. And the MNHSA's function is to break the illusion that inflated housing prices are natural or inevitable. Its purpose is the crash, because the market's true purpose was never to house people. It was to convert shelter into leverage. That lie held until something truer came along. 250,000 sovereign homes, each under $70,000, with baseline monthly payments starting around $350 to lease to own, would introduce a price floor so radically lower than current market rates that it would rupture the entire speculative logic inflating home prices. And yes, that's going to scare the shit out of a lot of people. Because the truth is, most Americans today don't live in homes. They live inside the inflated value of an asset, sold to them as security, but weaponized against the next generation. The MNHSA obliterates that cycle because it does exactly what the current system pretends to do, but never has. It houses people. Here's the mechanism. When a meaningful portion of the population, especially younger, working class, or debt-strapped families, suddenly has access to a high-quality, dignified modern home for less than a fifth of the cost of what's currently available, the illusion that current prices are justified by the market collapses. Not slowly, not politely, but all at once. People will look at a $63,000 sovereign home and then at their $440,000 mortgage on a 50-year fixer-upper and make the only rational decision left. Sell if they can. Abandon the old model. Cash out of the lie. And that's where the crash begins. Not in chaos, but in clarity. But this clarity will not be welcomed by everyone. It will be fought tooth and nail by the very forces that made housing a casino. The developers, the landlords, the banking interests, the asset managers, the pension funds and REITs and hedge funds and vulture firms who long ago stopped seeing homes as places to live and started seeing them as chips in a rigged game. The moment I am taken seriously, when this policy gains oxygen and mass support, those industries will do everything in their power to destroy it. You will see think pieces calling it naive. You will hear that it's too ambitious, too risky, economically unsound, too disruptive. And they'll be right, just not in the way they think. The MNHSA is economically unsound only if your economy depends on people staying poor and desperate to keep its books balanced. It's disruptive only if you believe the comfort of the investor class is more sacred than the shelter of the working people. And it's risky only in the way that every righteous act is risky, because it refuses to kneel. From an Enlightenment socialist perspective, this policy is not just economic. It is moral. It is infrastructural democracy. The MNHSA builds homes not as products, but as platforms for life itself, Shelter is not a luxury. It is a condition for liberty. You cannot pursue happiness if your roof is someone else's profit model. You cannot practice autonomy if your lease is a leash. The Enlightenment begins at the threshold of a free person's home, and for too long, that threshold has been walled off behind generational debt and institutional gatekeeping. And that's exactly why the system functions the way it does, because the possewood of the current housing market is not shelter, it is extraction. And every rent check, every inflated mortgage, every zoning blockade or NIMBY stunt is a feature, not a bug. The MNHSA turns that mirror around. It shows that when a system exists to meet human need, rather than to weaponize that need, it looks radically different. Its outcome is different. And that difference is the indictment. A civilization that allows the fundamentals of life, food, water, shelter, to be auctioned to the highest bidder is not free. It is feudal. And our current housing market is not a failure of capitalism. It is its pinnacle. Landlords do not produce housing. They parasitize it. Speculators do not build homes. They siphon the lifeblood from the ones that already exist. The real estate industry will call this an attack on their livelihoods. Good. It is. Because their livelihoods depend on scarcity, on making sure there are never enough homes, on inflating the price of what already exists, while blocking the construction of anything better, anything cheaper, anything ours. Sovereign homes break that cycle. They are not subject to bidding wars, real estate agents, or gentrification screams. They are immune to the landlord class because they are not up for sale. They are built, owned, and lived in by the people they shelter. You want a housing correction? Here it is. Not driven by bubbles bursting, but by truth emerging. Not by collapse, but by clarity. The MNHSA crashes the market, not by accident or incompetence, but by replacing fiction with fact. Because the market price of housing is not a law of physics. It is a political choice built atop generations of exclusion, exploitation, and artificial scarcity. $350 a month, lease to own. That's the number. That's the death knell. That's what breaks the illusion. That's what makes millions of Americans say, wait, why are we paying 5 times more for less? And that is the moment we win. We are not trying to regulate the housing market. We are trying to end it, not with fire, but with truth. And if that burns, if it burns, it's because it was already kindling. Our job is to light the match and then build something better in its ashes. Not just for Minnesota, not just for America, but for the idea that in a civilized world, a home is a right, not a racket.